One of the things that can happen with people when they start dating is that they have sort of a rigidity, or sort of a fixed ideals that they have or expectations, and that could really limit who they seek out in partnership. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. Sometimes what tends to happen, and I've encountered this with women a lot, when I've worked with them through dating, is that, a lot of women they have thought about like dating and marriage and or family or something like that for such a long time, right? They have it in their mind, and these pictures or these images that they have in their minds, they can be shaped by a whole lot of things. It could be shaped by what their mama said or their family said. It could be shaped by religious beliefs, culture beliefs, ethnicity, race. It could be shaped by, just wanting to be a perfectionist and having things be perfect. It could also be shaped by trauma as well. I think trauma is a big thing that shapes rigidity or fixed beliefs when it comes to dating. So, for example, a good trauma might be if you grew up in a family that was hyper religious, and that religion caused you to have some sort of church hurt or trauma or pain. You may want to go to the extreme when dating and date someone that's, has no belief in God, or you may want to have someone that, goes with you to church 5 nights a week. And if he doesn't do that, he's not Christian, he's not this, he's not that, or she's not, whatever, then we can't date. And there's some, one of the things that I work with women on is to, break through the rigidity and fixation. What are you really looking for? Not what are you traumatized by, right? Like, what is it that it's going to take to build a great relationship with you? Like, what are the key traits? Let's not focus on the trauma, because what you're telling me is things that are based out of fear. You're telling me what you don't want and how things have to be this extreme. And he could only be 45 to 47, and he's got to do this, he's got to do that. Like, is there some wiggle room within that, right? In other words, what will it take for you to not just exist in a relationship, but to thrive and feel happy? So, in other words, what are your core values in the relationship, right? And I think that's important to say, because a lot of times, when people are thinking about their relationships, they're thinking about them through a way that's very fear-based, based off of your history, or based off of what you've seen with other people, or based off of where you don't want the trajectory of your life to go, as opposed to what's going to help me feel alive, thrive, and feel really good. So here's a common thing that I will hear women say. I don't want kids. I don't want kids. I'll give a couple examples. So I don't want kids. I'm like, okay, well, that's pretty fixed. And that's not giving any room for love. Like, if you're older and you can't have kids, that's one thing. But if women are pretty young, and they're saying, I don't want kids, this and that and the other. And part of it is to deconstruct, where's that really coming from? And why are you, adhering to that decision so firmly? Like, what is it that's causing you to adhere to saying, I don't want children? Is that a fear that's coming from? And usually it's a fear, or it's based off of how they were raised or something like that. And I said, well, think about it this way. If you met your your partner, your prince or your queen, whatever, and you were the happiest that you've ever been, and your partner wants to bring a life into this world with you, and you're blissfully happy, would your answer still be the same? Because you could meet your person, and the thing is, when you meet your person, you become a different version of yourself, and you find yourself doing things that you never would have thought you would have done, right? So that's part of, deconstructing the rigidity or the closed-mindedness, and they'll think, and they'll, I don't know, but, just to kind of get that, you don't have to give an answer to me today, but it's just something I want you to think about. Like, when you're in a partnership, there's two of you, and like, I hear you in terms of what you're saying, but don't allow fear to have you close the door on your happiness, right? Because you might be closing the door prematurely, and you haven't even allowed yourself to have an experience yet, if that makes sense. Like, some of the experiences that you've had up until this point have been hurtful, and I can understand why, but don't allow hurtful experiences to deter you so far off track that you also aren't making room for your happiness. So, and another common one would be like, finances and things like that. And, there's a lot of women that are, deathly afraid of like having a man to support them, right? Or having a partner to support them financially and them not having to work. So this is a common theme. And, and one of the things I always say is like, I hear you in terms of fear around, giving up, your financial freedom to a partner who makes all the money. But like, what if your financial values align perfectly, and this person allows you to have access to money and doesn't really shut you down, and you have financial freedom? Like, would that open up things for you a little bit? And so just sort of exploring things from that outlet, as opposed to saying, well, if he makes all the money, he's going to control me. And that, that does happen. I'm not going to say that doesn't happen, but what if you have somebody that the two of you actually talk about finances and your values align financially? Like, would that make you feel better? I mean, because at the end of the day, you can always go out and get a job. You can always go out and get out and start over again and do all the things. You have all the tools. If you've been working with me, you've got some tools, so why not be a little bit more open to the possibilities of what can make you truly happy? And you don't have to give an answer today, but just something to kind of think about in terms of ways of allowing yourself to be a little bit more open and consider alternative ways of living. And other people have had situations, and I'm not telling you to just discount that, but it sounds like you know about that already. What I'm inviting you to do is consider possibilities that can actually make you happy, because those are the things that I haven't seen you give enough consideration to, right? It's good to have the data about all the things that can go wrong, but like, make sure you have the data about all the things that can go right, so you can start setting yourself up for that, as opposed to failure. Because a lot of times we hold on to our fears so tight that we sort of, we foreshadow what's to come, right? As opposed to saying, you know what, I'm gearing up for success, and that's how I'm approaching my relationship and how I'm approaching dating and my life. So let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, share, and follow.